Hey guys, before we get to Iran, my friend Ahmed Batir lost his father to the Israeli army. He's the only provider for his family as they endure the ongoing genocide in Gaza. You can learn more about his story and how to help him in the links below. And as always, do what you can.
It's not a good thing for the people of Iran if we bomb their country and kill people, kill a bunch of
Right.
school children. This isn't
Right.
going to help the Iranian people. What helps them is by lifting the sanctions and letting their government and their world actually build, letting their country develop more. And then the people can actually rise up and have a more responsive government.
It still should be on you to stand up for human rights because human rights are important. Because if I can't rely on you to stand up for human rights abroad, if I can't rely on you to simply not send a bunch of bombs to go be dropped on brown children, like what? Who are you? What substance? What good character? People want to vote for good people.
The Democratic Party is not a leftist party. Contrary to what, these Republicans say about, Nancy Pelosi, she's a communist, and, all these other Dems being scary communists. A lot of them are anything but. Many of them are owned and paid for by the exact same people the Republicans are. You still have people like Lockheed Martin and Palantir investing money into Democrats as well as Republicans. So, they buy both sides. They shore up their bets because ultimately what matters to them most is capital. What matters most is that they make money. And Democrats are just as likely, especially the ones in leadership, to, give those military contracts to, wars as Republicans are.
Go spend billions to go bomb more brown people over there across the world and go bomb some other demographic of brown people that are not the typical brown people we love bombing anyway. Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff going on now. Like the world's on fire. We're bombing everything. Everywhere is being bombed. When I was coming up here, like gas is like over $4 now.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Super expensive now. And it's all because of what's going on over in Iran.
Yeah, that's so this is like why I wanted to bring you on, Jared. So first, hi.
What's
Another
up?
cool episode, Blackstar Podcast. This is like our like fourth one now. This has been pretty cool. I've enjoyed putting these together. I've like updated my production a bit. So hopefully things look and sound a bit better. But yeah, I've got good friend here, Jared. He's good at a few things. We've had a lot of really good talks about everything going on right now, especially the war in Iran. And this is like the Black Star Iran episode. Probably won't be the last one because things are not getting better, as we will see. But yeah, I'm excited to get into some cool stuff here. We've got Iran stuff, we've got Israel stuff, and we've got the Dems. And if it's one thing about me, I will always come back to shitting on Dems.
It's my favorite pastime.
So yeah, Jared, who are you? Why did I invite you here?
So my name is Jared. I'm really big into like advocacy. My major is philosophy, but my minor is poli-sci. So like I've been really tapped into politics for a while now. So I know a lot about these things. I met my boy Jay over at some SJP events, Students Justice for Palestine. So, I've been very tapped in with the politics going on in the Middle East. That's a really big topic for me, really important. And one thing that you should know about me is that when it comes to politics, like I don't mess around. That's like the only thing I'm good at. I'm good at maybe a couple things, but politics is like top one. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't be good at everything. So really own in on that one thing that like you can do best. And for me, that's politics.
Yeah, so this is having you on is exactly the point of why I make these episodes here. And like the a bit of a through line is that I have a lot of smart friends. Everyone I've had on so far are people who I know in real life, who I know do good work, and we hang out and they're smart. So like, while I love to have like experts and like doctors, historians, and journalists on, I know cool people anyway.
I'm the stepping
So
stone for
honestly, you're the good stepping stone. You know,
I hope pave the
um,
way.
I don't feel like I'm losing anything as far as like decent conversation with who I have on.
Hey, and
So
what's most important is to talk to the everyday man. It's not always about talking to experts. That's important too, but it's also important to see where the public's feeling it.
yeah, like public opinion is really important here. Even talking about like a tragically unpopular war that we're waging right now. One that our government didn't even try to like manufacture consent over. They were just like, yeah, we're doing the war. Fuck
We're
you
just going in
guys.
there. Who cares,
We're go-
guys?
we're just going in there. Bring back when governments would lie to you and like try to make up a narrative on why they're doing
It's
war.
those. Did you say it's those WMDs? We got to go in there.
They've been talking about that for like how long, 50 years. Iran has been a week away from a nuke since like
Yeah,
the
yeah, Bibi Netanyahu.
80s.
Iran is a month away from having nukes, nuclear bombs.
There's like a compilation of like him saying that exact thing from the 80s. I'll like insert that
How
here.
old?
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
That man
But
is.
which also is a sign of like, okay, we need new people in government. If they're parroting the same awful talking points for decades now.
He
But
actually was invited by the Republicans to the U.S. to come and personally take a fat dump on Obama, first and foremost, but also second, to tell everybody that Iran was, I don't know, weeks, months away from having the capability to strike the U.S. with nuclear bombs.
yeah, Geiger's there. He's yeah. We'll we'll talk a lot about him. So I just want to set this up with like where we are currently in Iran war stuff. At time of recording, we're about a month in. We're in early April now, about a month into our excursion, as it's
Right, our
called.
protracted military effort, our how would you say, our accelerated kinetic military operations.
Yeah, the regime isn't too big on using the actual word war. They use these much more flowery
Euphemisms.
languages. Yeah, metaphors to describe what exactly is happening. So I just did a couple Google searches. Like I've been like doing my own readings here.
Mhm.
But as of time in as of this recording, we're at about 3,500 dead in Iran,
Iran.
which includes about 100 schoolgirls who we blew up like first couple days of
Right.
the operation. One of the most disgusting, abhorrent war actions I've seen just in my time as I'm actively seeing them. That one was awful. In case anyone hasn't heard about that really early stages of the operation, apparently there was some faulty intelligence given to us by the Israelis that
Yep.
some sort of bunker deal was being housed underground in a particular area, right? And it was out now. If it was outdated or not, that's the word of the U.S. government. So take that for
Right.
what you
But
will.
whether or not that bunker was there, it's still illegal under international law and it's still unconscionable.
Say more on that, on the illegal side of things.
So, according to international law, it doesn't matter what the building is being used for. It doesn't matter who's in there. You can't target civilian infrastructure. You can't target hospitals, schools, churches, mosques, synagogues. You can't do any of that. It doesn't matter if it's like a time of war, which even then, it's like a gray area now, whether or not we even consider this to be a war, which we consider it to be, but the administration is saying that it's not yet. So no matter what happens there, it doesn't matter. You still can't target or attack a civilian infrastructure, even if there's like a bunker or something beneath it.
Yeah, really critical point there is that that's actually a strategy that gets weaponized by the Israelis because
But
they
also the
how
Americans. It's called
also
shock
they
and awe.
sure, yes, here as well. Like the Israelis, they house a lot of their really critical military infrastructure in these densely populated cities.
Right. The major military base within Israel, the most important one, is in the heart of Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel. It's next to a
Right.
mall.
And then next to the mall. So like obviously like anti-war here, obviously here, but it's a way to weaponize these laws. So there is no good way to eliminate this military infrastructure when it's housed immediately next to where your civilians are. But yeah, we've got over 3,500 Iranians dead, as well as 13 Americans who have died as well. That is at least 13. There was just a military plane that was just shot down a few days
Yep.
ago,
Two of them.
and those individuals are now still missing. So I don't believe that 13 counts them. Substantial losses here as far as our own troops.
Right. It's not
Jared, you kind of
get in, get out operation like people thought it'd be, like with Venezuela, for example.
yeah, Venezuela point. Let's table that for just a second here. You made a reaction to that military plane being shot down, the American one.
I think it
Did
was
you
an
want to say more?
F-35 that was shot down, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I believe so as well.
We're getting conflicting messages on this. So some say that one of the pilots was rescued, and then other people are saying like the Iranians that like both of them are missing. I know that one of them is missing for sure, and that there's like a bounty on his or her head or their head. It doesn't matter who they are, but regardless, it shows that there's conflicting messaging on this, but they also that both sides have an interest in making the war seem beneficial, like it's going in their favor. And at least in the American side, because we're living here in the United States, we're living in the heart of where this is actually being directed from, where it's being processed from. The American government has been very, very much weird about this war. I mean, they usually are, but Trump has been going on record basically every day saying, we're winning big, guys. We're going in there, we're beating the bad guys. They have no more military capabilities. The Navy's gone. Their missiles are basically almost depleted. But time and time again, we're being shown that Iran still has more than enough power to fight back.
Yeah, the amount to call the propaganda is such a understatement to me. We live in a entirely post-truth reality at this point, where like nothing is real. Whatever is real is it's just stated on Truth Social by our president. Actual foreign policy declarations are made at 2 a.m. on his knockoff Twitter. Like, I don't understand who like, who is correct here? Why? And like, obviously, empires are gonna do what they can, use media, weaponize the media as a way to defend their actions. But we can at least try to have actual bases for our lies. And like, I don't know if just like the Israelis are lying to him a whole bunch, and he just accepts whatever Bibi is saying. That's what some people are saying. I think Trump has a bit more autonomy in that way. I think
I
he
mean,
just
I'd like to think
has
that he's not like, I mean, more brain dead than he already is.
right, right. I think he has a big ego, and that is a driver of a lot of these actions, especially coming off of he brought up the Venezuela piece. Like, he's just coming off of the high of the kidnapping of Maduro.
Maduro
Like
and his wife.
yeah, that was in and out. That was clean. That was a
I mean,
win.
100 people died from that, but to the
Right,
Americans, it was clean.
but like, who cares on that,
Who
right?
cares about
Like,
them?
that was clean. We were in and out. Now we're getting the oil. That was a win, right? And so I think that, especially at the early stages of the war, he was for Iran. He was like, okay, cool, let's do this exact same thing. We're gonna go in, kill Khomeini, which he did in the early stages as well. Kill everyone else who is
Head
important
of,
in the
the IRGC and the government.
right.
A lot of these
Right.
officials were assassinated within the first couple of days by Israel and the U.S.
All of that, just to replace Khomeini with Khomeini.
His son.
Right.
Exactly, Mujtaba.
Who certainly isn't
Who
going to
seems
take that easily.
more hardline. One of the
Who
funniest
seems
things
more,
about that is
yeah,
that,
like,
the original Khamenei, like, he was against having Iran having nukes. Like, he had an entire decree that Iran would not have nuclear bombs. That, like, it was against Islam. And now Mujtaba doesn't seem to really have the same reservations.
yeah. I mean, perhaps killing one's father and entire family
His wife,
and
his
his
kids,
wife laying siege to one's country doesn't really make you any much
more
more
moderate.
moderate. That is not a moderating action here.
Right. If anything, it's more radicalizing, I would say.
Perhaps. I want to give you some space to talk us through like this regime change aspect. So that was like a big, or at least described as a big intention. The objective of the war, now no one knows. There's certainly a moving goalpost, but at least in the earlier stages, it was they were pretty
They were pretty
overt,
opposed to it.
right? So just like say a bit about that.
When it comes to regime change, it's never worked for America. America tried it in Libya. We've tried it in, all these other countries around the world, and it just doesn't work out for us. We tried it in Afghanistan too. And you know what happened? Our government that we backed in Afghanistan fell within 3 days in 2021
3 days.
after we backed out. 3 days. And then the Taliban was back into power. So we have a horrible track record with regime change. It's just something that it doesn't come from the people. It comes from without. It comes from the outside. And you can't really force that upon a people and expect it to stick. Because regime change, the entire premise of it is built on the idea that, like, we're not building this country up. We're destroying it. And then maybe from the ashes, we can get some good oil out of it. So in the case of Iran, they have spent 40-ish years since the Iranian Revolution in the 70s, 40, 50 years, not the best accounting, but they've spent a large deal of time trying to build up their government, trying to resist the United States and to anticipate when the U.S. would come back and actually invade their country, because the U.S. has been menacing them, has been being like, okay, we're going to put sanctions on you. We're going to back other countries to invade you. Like, for example, Iraq with Saddam Hussein and his chemical weapons, which he got from the U.S. We're going to back all these guys to come in and invade your country. Iran always knew the U.S. would come back. It was only a matter of when, not if. And, they built up this mosaic of resistance within their apparatus, their government, and also military apparatus, where it doesn't matter if the heads die. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like a hydra. more heads will keep growing. Like, you can't kill a hydra just by cutting off one head or even multiple of them. You can't.
Yeah, that's something that I find really interesting. Just as far as the way that countries structure their own governments and their intentions behind them. So Iran, especially to all of them being killed, they had a very horizontal line of succession, right? There wasn't a rigid vertical hierarchy where, like, if one person dies, then we have a clearly defined immediate person to come up next. It was the head, the supreme leader, and then under him was like a number of possible people who could have came up next, and then ultimately getting to his son. When it came to which, like, none of them were going to be friendly to America anyway. That's like the very important part there. Like, like, you didn't there was no one who you could have instilled that the Iranian people would have been like like okay, cool, like, we're down with America now, like, we like America, we just had to have a more friendly with America leader, and now we're gonna get behind it. Like, no, that was never gonna happen.
And more to that, actually. So we had like an agreement with Iran that, they would lower their uranium, their enriched uranium,
Hmm.
and in return, we would list sanctions for them. And this was under Obama, and this is called JCPOA. This was like a multilateral agreement that wasn't just the US and Iran, but also China, Russia, Europe. Like, all these countries would agree mutually that, like, Iran and all these other countries would lower their enriched uranium, but in return, Iran would have its sanctions lifted and they could actually invest in their economy and have money to do so. Because there isn't a country that exists without trade.
Right.
Even the United States, to exist, requires trade. And so that's an amazing and enormously powerful weapon to wield against other countries that we have, because we control the dollar, we control the monetary system, the global monetary system. And after Trump backed out of the JCPOA, Iran continued to follow it for some time. But then Trump slapped on a bunch of sanctions on it to choke out the current government. And as a result, the pragmatists who negotiated for the JCPOA, for this denuclearization deal, were voted out of office. They left, they were kicked out. And the ideologues, the clerics, they gained more power, more legitimacy, because, like, it showed that the US is not reasonable. You can't reason with this country, because you see Obama, he made a deal with them, but then Trump just backs out of it because this wasn't a deal passed by Congress. It was an agreement. It was an executive agreement.
Right.
So from the perspective of Iran, it's like, okay, well, how do we know we can even trust you again? If we make another agreement, you could just back out of it again. And now we have sanctions, but we have no nukes. We have no way of defending ourselves. We have no enriched uranium. So, like, at that point, what are they supposed to do? You tell me.
Yeah. What do you think about so Trump made his campaign about anti-war stuff. He was like
The white dove.
I'm gonna end the wars, no more wars. I'm gonna
No more wars.
bring no
Not
more
under me.
wars, not under him. Lie, crazy. Who would have thought that? Right? What do you think the role of the president is, though, as far as, like, making these choices? Because I get a lot of, like, conversations around, like, we're only in this because of Trump. Kamala would have never done this. We're unable to sort of have a crystal ball here and see if that's
Divine,
actually
like, this
possible or not.
alternate future
Right.
where Kamala is the president.
Right. I'm not a wizard. Right? So I don't know. But, like, what do you think? Because you mentioned that deal in particular being through the executive office anyway. Like, there's obviously leading the military is something that the president does anyway. So, like, what's your take on, like, Trump in particular, his role in this as opposed to someone else?
I mean, in the Constitution, the president's role is to wage war. It's not to declare war. The declaration of war and the ending of wars is within the purview of Congress, the legislature. But, This doesn't start with Trump. It's Obama, it's Clinton, it's Bush, it's all of these other presidents who have in the past, waged war without the consent of Congress or taken military actions abroad
Mhm.
without the consent of Congress. So Trump going in and being like, okay, we're going to come in here, we're going to bomb them, we're going to get out, it's going to be great, we're going to have all the oil. That in and of itself is a natural conclusion to every other president, taking away power from Congress to not only wage war, but now declare it as well. And, this question of whether what we even consider to be a war is also this gray area where you see it like as military operations. That's what it's classified as,
Mhm.
kinetic operations, not necessarily war that they want to say in name, because if they call it war, then they have to
Right.
go in front of Congress and explain why they're there to begin with.
Yeah, that gets at this idea of the illegal war, right?
Mm.
Trump is waging an illegal war here. He didn't go to Congress. He didn't follow the popular channels. That is a really common talking point that we see by
Liberals, yeah, that he didn't
Dems.
abide by the process. He didn't get an AUMF, which is an authorized use of military force.
Right, right. And even then we had to fight the Dems on getting a
War
resolution
power resolution.
on the war powers. Anyway, so I want to like pivot us here a bit and talk about our Democrats, right?
Beautiful.
Our our Dems, our resistance party, the ones we always voted for, and the ones we love to vote for. Like, what's your read on the Dems right now and their reaction to this operation, as it's called?
The Democrats are so funny because many of them are pro-Israel and they're like, oh, we don't support this war, I mean, Trump, like, we like what they're doing, but like, we just don't like how they're going about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it was a Democratic president, they wouldn't be chirping nearly as much as they are because Trump is in office. And, I hate Trump. I'm ideologically opposed to Trump. But the Democrats, they wouldn't care if he was just doing an AUMF. Like, they'd be celebrating it if he was like going through the process, if he went to Congress. They
Right.
probably would have agreed to vote for this war. They probably would have done it. They probably would have done so because ultimately it also goes back to Israel and their tacit, unregulated, undemeaned, unconditional support for this ethno state, this, genocidal apartheid state. This really goes back to that. It's like they have APAC in their pockets and they can't go against that because if they do, they lose funding. They could get primaried. So these consequences and also their own ideological commitment to Israel are all what make them support this war. But they also realize that, like, okay, well, the public, they don't like this war. Most Democrats, like most people who register Democrats, they hate this war. And so this is like a very cynical way of like weaseling in there. Like they can seem like they're being resistant. They can seem like they're actually opposing Trump. But in actuality, they're still, silently under the table supporting what he's doing.
Right. So you said a lot of really important things there. I think that it's impossible to disentangle the Israel lobby aspects of this. It certainly got their tentacles in about everything right now. I
Operates with
want to
impact free.
right. I want to take a step back and talk about why we're in this war to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone were to guess, it is Israel. Who would have thought, right?
Well, there's been conflicting accounts on this, but it's mostly
Talk
Israel.
about that. What are those conflicting stories?
So one of the reasons they originally said is because, okay, well, Iran, they are an imminent threat. And Netanyahu's been saying this for decades now. So I don't know what the definition of the word eminent means to him. But, here we are.
Right.
And others are saying, if Iran, they could get a nuke, maybe not now, maybe not today, but eventually, they could amass so many missiles, so much military power that we could never touch them in the future. And so we need to attack them now when they're at their weakest today, as opposed to tomorrow when they're going to be at their strongest. This hypothetical future where Iran, they're this like belligerent force that is attacking Israel and dropping nukes on the United States, all over the place. They completely level the continent of the United States. So as irrational actors, as very rational actors that, the United States
Right.
we
Right.
claim to be,
Of course.
we have a moral duty, a moral responsibility to go in and prevent this potential horrible future where Iran drops nukes on the U.S. and our beloved first state, Israel. But there's also this other account by Marco Rubio who said, Israel, they went in there and they attacked Iran. If we didn't step in, Israel would be alone. They would be defenseless.
We stood and waited for that attack to come first. Before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
God forbid Israel faces the consequences of its actions.
So that, yes, exactly. That last point is really what I wanted to get at. They are like, that is in the sea of bullshit, in the house of mirrors that we live in, as far as everyone just lying and no one saying anything true at all. I appreciated Rubio for saying that so much, because it was like it obviously was a way to just deflect and say, oh, like, our hands were tied, we didn't really want to, but our besties Israel were gonna do it anyway. Like that was obviously the goal there, but there was a level of truth in that. We have our extension, our branch over there in the Middle East, or our white child over there surrounded by scary brown people.
Exactly. God forbid, right? There,
we have to protect them, and we were goaded into this operation. Again, obviously, very strange wording to even use there. They pulled us into it. Now our tax dollars, as everyone is dying and no one has health care, people can't afford housing, people can't afford food, gas prices are at $4. We now have to go spend billions to go bomb more brown people over there across the world, and go bomb some other demographic of brown people that are not the typical brown people we love bombing anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you saw Trump. He was talking about, we can't have Medicaid or Medicare or, SNAP. We can't have all these things. It's too much. It's too much. The U.S. too diverse. We can't have universal health care. But we do need that money for our wars. That's where we got to put our tax dollars into. I mean, he openly admitted that.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up myself. Let's insert that clip here so people can see it.
And I actually said to them, I said to Russell, don't send any money for daycare, because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country. But all these little things, all these little scams that have taken place, you have to let states take care of them, Russell, and you have to do it.
But yeah, this was at some sort of like military government brunch. He's like saying the quiet part out loud there. He's saying that the federal government, they have no obligation to provide anything of value to you, and he's not interested in it. He's not. It's not even that like we can't afford it, right? That's not even what he's saying, right? He's saying that he does not want to. That is, he does not think that that's the role of the federal government to provide for the people. That he thinks that the states are better off to provide basic needs like healthcare. He mentioned childcare that was a big part as well, and he believes that our tax dollars, when it goes to the federal government, it must be used for war. It
Right.
must be
So it's
used for
our tax
bonds.
dollars, they should only go to multi-billion-dollar companies so that these
Right.
companies can get those subsidies and then they can do stock buybacks.
Right. And I want to put a final point on like what you said there as well. Like, you don't just like war doesn't function like a vending machine where you just put in money and then bombs go and are dropped somewhere in the Middle East, right?
Somewhere we can't see them.
You our money is going to Raytheon, right? Our money is going to Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin,
Our
Palantir.
our money is going to Palantir, who is runs this surveillance apparatus that tracks where people are to go bomb them in a more efficient way. So
Mhm.
so what are we paying for? We're paying these terrible billionaire corporations that just make people's lives worse.
Right. That's
Mean
what the
well,
CEOs can get higher paychecks.
right. And again, everyone's is still suffering here in this country, in America. Again, people don't have healthcare. You
People
know,
have
ICE is
health,
still terrorizing people.
ice, oil is going up, gas, good, nothing good for us.
But back to the Dems.
Mm.
Everything I just said, that sort of populist rhetoric, the idea that okay, we need to take to shrink the military budget because that is the what we're spending billions upon billions of dollars
I think it's like at $1 trillion.
to trillions. Yeah, didn't he like just ask for like 10 billion like last week to like carry on more Iran stuff, like asking for trillions of dollars on that. That's what it's the military and healthcare, and then even then there's like a big gap between those two as far as how much money you spend on. But the Dems could, if they wanted to, take that message of let's take some money from the military and put it towards things that people actually want and need.
Yeah, like they don't need to be worth like 1.5 or whatever $trillion. Like, you know how
Right.
big $1 trillion is? Like
It's a lot of money.
that's that's like I can't even like imagine it. It's like more than 100 of billions, way more than that. Like, it's so much that they don't really need.
So why do you think the Dems do that? Why don't they make that message? Because like they know that their base, the people who vote for them and give them money, they hate war, right? They don't want this war, and they are
Mhm.
also poor and need healthcare, right? I
Mhm.
feel like this should be a rhetorical layup for them to make. So like, what do you think is the barrier?
Now, this should be a layup, but the issue is that the Democratic Party is not a leftist party. Contrary to what, these Republicans say about, oh, Nancy Pelosi, she's a communist, and, all these other Dems being scary communists. A lot of them are anything but. Many of them are owned and paid for by the exact same people the Republicans are. You still have people at like Lockheed Martin and Palantir investing money into Democrats as well as Republicans. So, they buy both sides. They shore up their bets because ultimately what matters to them most is capital. What matters most is that they make money. And Democrats are just as likely, especially the ones in leadership, to, give those military contracts to, wars as Republicans are. Like, maybe they'll put a little bow on top of it. Maybe they'll put like a little rainbow flag on top of the war, but ultimately it's still the same violence, the same horrific atrocities the Republicans are willing to go through.
Right. Imagine this a war, but by a woman,
Yeah, imagine
Are
this
you saying
war, but by a black
women can't lead in the military? Like, what's
woman.
wrong
What's
with
wrong with
that?
that?
What if
Are you saying that like black people they're not
right,
competent? They can't
right.
kill people just as well as white people can?
That's crazy, right? But no, that is the exact issue. That is the exact thought process that
Mhm.
they use to where like their objection is not with the war. We do not have an anti-war party here, and that is like a big issue. And that's
It's an issue.
like I need that to be one of the many tests for 28 on okay, what is your general stance on war?
Large majority of people are anti-war. That's part of why Trump won. He said he was anti-war. Turned out that was
Yeah,
wrong, but at least lie to people. At least try to
at
make an
least
effort.
lie, at least lie, at least lie.
The Democrats
They
they're not saying anything. They're just being silent. They're like, okay, well, we don't like the way you're doing it, but we still kind of like this war.
yeah, I think there's the obvious Israel of it all. If you're getting funded by Lockheed,
Exactly.
I'm sure you also love this war. Like you're gonna love this war as well.
Right. You're getting fat off the gains these military contractors are making. And that, they're taking that money and putting it back in and lobbying you guys, like the people in power, the Congress people, and then, it's just like a loop of money.
So, what do you think we should do about that? Like, I think it's like I'm just some dude on the internet. I'm not in
I'm just a
Congress, nor
guy.
do I. I'm just some guy, right? I don't have any interest in being in Congress either. But there has been deep anti-war movements in the past. We have protests against the Iraq War. That was huge. We have the protests against the Vietnam War. I've been looking into like these past anti-war movements, and they've been obviously all of these things are led by young people, led oftentimes by students. We're obviously seeing a bit more of that now compared to earlier, but I don't know. I feel like the anti-war mantle isn't really taken up often, even by young left people like us.
I think it's also that like the Democratic leadership, like the people in power in the Democratic Party, also have not only an ideological but like a monetary incentive to continue the war, to like continue the war machine that the US really is. Like they're not really say anything if like let's say we allow another country like Israel to commit a genocide within its borders. So ultimately what we have to do is we need to make sure that we're electing people who are actually anti-war, like who don't just like, say that they are, but like also mean it. We need to actually go for more people like Zoran Mamdani, more people who are progressive and have principled stances against war. Because one thing that we don't need are people who are grifters. We don't need people who don't have any sort of like ideological commitment, any sort of like moral standing principles, just people who are in it for the love of the game. We need less
Yeah,
of that and more Mamdanis, not just on like progressive policy or whatever, but also on the issue of war.
thing I say this every episode. Like, what do you think happens when we elect a bunch of Mamdanis? If we elect 50 more AOCs, right?
Mm.
What happens now?
I mean, we don't get like a socialist country overnight. We don't get like the communism. We don't get like the USSR in America just because we have a bunch of Mamdanis or AOCs or Bernie Sanders. What happens is that we have congressmen, congresswomen, and Congress they them, who are more receptive to the people's beliefs, to the people's opinions, to the people's needs. Because ultimately, what the left sort of wants to do is they want to be more receptive to workers, to the populace, to the masses. Ultimately, that's what democracy is all about. And while this is played out in different ways, the theory of, leftism, of like democratic socialism, for example, is that you're putting the workers first. You're putting their needs, their wants, their labor and wages first and foremost. And people, they vote with their money, they vote with their, actual citizenship, their rights, and these things all have an important role to play. Right now, the Democrats, they ignore that because they're receptive to capital. Their interests fall in line with the people who make them money. But one thing about democracy is that ultimately it's not what money matters most. It's not about how much money you have, but more so about the votes, at least theoretical democracy. The idea of democracy that we have in our minds. It's that, one person, one vote. And so if we have more Zoran Mamdanis, more AOCs, more people who are actually, they have convictions and they are ideologically opposed to war, then we have a better likelihood to have our voices answered, our wants and desires reciprocated.
Yeah, it's a fun idea. It's a really
It's a fun idea. It's a
well,
notion.
sure, but I say that you say like the one person, one vote thing. People like this
We don't
sort
even
of
have that now with the Electoral
well, right.
College.
That's my point. There's so many barriers that exist to actual true
Democracy.
democracy in this country. There's the
There's the money in
electoral
politics as well.
college that I speak on often, but it's the money in politics, right? Like there is the fact that corporations can just dump endless amounts of money into these people's
Races.
campaigns, that is the issue. I think before we talk about like who these people are going to be, any sort of like foreign policy, even what is your stance on campaign finance? What do you see since United that allows this endless amount of money to as a distinct issue in this country, a barrier to a democracy in this country? If you're not down with overturning that, we can't talk, right?
Mm.
If you are totally cool with being paid 10K by Palantir, right?
Mhm.
And you expect people to not think that you're in any way beholden to that company, then you're not credible. You're not credible at
Not
anything at all.
We can't trust you. But also, I mean, you're absolutely right in that sense that, money in politics, it's such a rot, it's such a tumor within our political landscape. And one of the reasons why is because of Citizens United. Like it's because of that Supreme Court decision on Citizens United that we have these PACs, these super PACs and corporations. United is the reason why all these companies and corporations and PACs and lobbyists can just dump as much money as they want within all these races and not see any consequence.
Yeah, I mean, so given everything that's on fire right now, I always, and given my track record of like always I'm shitting on Dems, like I want the best for them. I want them to be good. I want to vote
I want them
for
to
them.
win.
I want them to win. I do ultimately want them to win. I have to be very clear on that. I want the right
Enough
ones
of this
to
like
win.
loser crap where like they're just like, we see you, we hear you, but we can't do anything about it. Like
But
enough of that.
what I don't want to vote for is them shitting on Hassan Piker and making like
Mm.
their entire media ecosystem around shitting on him, as if like that is like the biggest issue around right now.
It's funny because they wanted him to be the Joe Rogan of the left. But what we quickly realized is that the Democrats, they're not the left. The ones in power, they're neoliberals. Their interests are more so towards like these big companies, like these billionaires and CEOs and boards than the actual like common man. And Hassan Piker, his politics, they represent a shift to the left. And that scares them, that terrifies them. And that's why they want to demonize him. They don't want people going on his show.
So say more on that, because I think that there is something a bit more like personal about it. Like it's not just that like this guy has more like left wing politics than your average. Like Bernie has much more left politics than like your average Dem,
Mm.
right?
Well,
There's something
he's
like
also... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, like, I'm talking about like much more recent articles. I'll like put them up here by Third Way, this like corporate Dem centrist, we need to moderate Dem think tank, and they're saying that, oh, like the Democrats are too comfortable with Hassan, right? And they're like they're dragging a lot of these candidates that go on his show, and they're dragging him on the basis of like, oh, he's anti-Semitic, he hates women, all of these like
He thinks
identity.
9/11 was deserved. All these
Right,
other
right. Which like it's obvious that like these people just like haven't actually watched him and really don't know. None of them know what Twitch is, obviously.
right. The two old.
But like, yeah, like what's your read on that? I think it's a bit more personal than just the politics.
Well, I think that they personally feel under threat. I think that they see their power. They see, because the Democratic Party has always been like it's always been about like this big tent politics. And they see the tent moving away from their power, their control. And what they're afraid of is that all these progressives, like the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders and the Mamdanis of the world will take over the party, and then they won't have a base. They won't have a party to control anymore. They won't have a home anymore because they're too ashamed to be Republicans. They feel like that's like miserable. They're like, oh well, we're too good for that. We got too much money for
Right.
that. Good for that.
Right.
But the Democrats, like, if they move further to the left, then they really will be homeless. They won't have anywhere to go because the public hates them. Like, even though Trump is his popularity ratings are under the water, somehow the Democrats are even worse.
The Democrats are even lower.
Their ratings are even lower than Trump's, even though Trump is like one of the least popular presidents at this point in his presidency ever. We're only in like year 2.
Yeah. Trump is at 33% approval last time I checked, and the only thing lower than that are the Dems. But you had to ask why, and you have to consider: are you doing any sort of reflection? Like your base hates you. Your base does not like you. They do not like voting for you. They are not happy with what you are doing. I think that there's like a number of different ways that you can go about responding to that if you actually care. And I'm not like, you're not doing anything to respond to that, which leads me to believe that you don't actually care. Like, you know that the conservatives will always be worse, and you know that whichever evil gremlin comes up after Trump, like your base isn't gonna vote for them, and that allows you that when Tucker Carlson, well, I do actually think, since you brought him up, I do think that a fair number of Dems will actually vote for Tucker Carlson in the Carlson v Kamala Harris election. I think Tucker's winning.
He's winning by Reagan numbers.
Yeah, I like in the Gavin Newsom v Tucker election. I don't know, but like you're
but it shouldn't be that close.
But you're losing. You're losing to some talking head who got fired from Fox News. That's crazy. That's embarrassing.
You're actually making your life harder. And for what? Nothing. Like, you don't have to run this unpopular, focus-tested campaign that nobody cares for. You should be running actual populist, like, tabletop issues.
But it makes them money. That's why they do it, because it makes them money. That's the issue. That's the issue. We can't have this conversation as if these people are actually beholden to our interests, as if these people are actually interested in doing things that make our lives better. That is not their goal. If it was, we would have Medicare for all. We would have student debt we have student debt canceled. If they were actually interested in that.
I need that canceled stat. I need student loan debt.
But, My favorite part about the student debt conversation is that it would help Black people the most. Is that Black people are much more likely to have student debt. So like that was like an actual factor in the cancellation conversation.
The Republicans, like one of their main strategies is it's called the Southern strategy. And that means that they push policies that don't explicitly hurt Black people and people of color, but that do so by virtue of those policies. So like
Yeah.
one of them is, for example, like you mentioned, like student loan debt, like having forgiveness disproportionately helps Black people. And as a result, they oppose that in order to
They
give
don't want to do
red
it. Yeah.
meat to their base, who are
Yeah.
inherently anti-Black.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old drained pool politics where
Also,
they do.
welfare.
Also welfare. They hate welfare. Why? Because Black people are on it.
I mean,
To them.
with a welfare queen, the original idea of it came out of the 19th or like early 20th century, and it was like a white woman
A
who
white
was like
woman.
who was taking advantage. It was like she was like taking advantage of the system, or like the like some sort of like, I don't know, government subsidies or something. But like she got money from the government, and you see this switch during like Reagan's era, and like the Republicans in that day who start using this idea of like a welfare queen as like a Black woman who wants to take advantage of like the the government and the system, and like she has like several like she has like several husbands and like several guys
Right,
who
right.
like she's around with and all this. Like it's inherently anti-Black.
Yeah, good old Reagan mention wouldn't be we wouldn't have a full episode if we didn't bring it back to Reagan. But yeah,
He's
I
looking
was
looking up down there. He's looking up down there.
he's looking up at us. But yeah, one more point on the student debt point. If there, for some reason, if there's ever a Democrat consultant listening right now, first off, why? Please. Well, like, no, here's what I am gonna say. If you are a Democrat, a consultant listening, and you care about getting the Black votes, right? And you want to actually message to Black people, you don't need to run a Black person if you have a better candidate. I'm looking at you, Jasmine Crockett, but run on canceling student debt.
Please.
Why? And message and
I'm a Black person. I condone this message as a Black person, as a Dominican, que lo que, I condone what my boy is saying. Okay, we need that. Please.
Yeah, run on that. Run on affordable healthcare. Run on
Affordable
fair
housing.
housing. Like this is if you actually care about helping Black people, you would do these policies. If you care,
Right. It's not just about electing Black people. It's about actually giving Black people material wins, things that they can actually appreciate.
You will never have another Obama. Obama is we are done that. You had one Obama, right? And you took it and you ran with it. Okay, cool. That's done, right? We need a new politics. If you care about helping Black people, we need these universal policies here. And and I'm not even getting at the actual race-based policies. I'm not saying that like only Black people get. I'm not talking about that, but these universal policies that raise the floor for what like the minimum quality of life is, you better the lives of those who are closer to that floor, which are more often Black people.
Exactly.
Gonna
and it's
go
not just
off
Black
the
people, it's all people of color, It's
yes,
Latinos, it's Asians, it's Muslims, Arabs, it's everyone. This is an intersectional issue. It's LGBTQ people. This is an issue that affects all of us. And if the left truly cares about these marginalized people, then they would actually run policies and not be afraid of them. Be bold. Don't be afraid to challenge the Republicans and fight for something that has value, that materially benefits us.
So there's this. I'm working on this piece right now. I'm calling it "Israel Isn't Sexy Anymore," right? And it's it's about this heel turn that's by both sides, much more so on the Democratic Party, and it's on how the Democratic base is just appalled a good reason at the actions of Israel, the apparent genocide, and their elected people doing nothing to stop it. And we see the increased sites on like a APAC tracker, and the Israeli influence on our government is more apparent now than
Ever
ever.
before.
And we see a lot of politicians sort of seeing the writing on the walls here. They're saying, okay, cool, Israel money is toxic. Oh wow, my actual finances are public. That's crazy. They can see if I'm bought out. That's wild. I
Oh
didn't
my
know
God,
people actually read those.
I'm exposed.
So yeah, so now you're seeing like really staunch Zionists. You're seeing them turning around on Israel money, and like just like what do you make of that? I'm looking at like Cory Booker, who like he's just awful, but Cory Booker, like he said that he's done taking APAC money as of 2 weeks ago. Mind you, he's taken almost $1 million in APAC money. That's like saying, yeah, I've been in alcoholic for 10 years, but starting today, like
today,
no more alcohol, right? Cold turkey, right? So yeah, like what do you make of this?
he's lying. First off,
He's lying.
second,
Okay.
it doesn't matter if it's just APAC directly giving them money, because APAC has like subsidies, like they have like subsidiary like packs that they can use to dump money into people without actually like the APAC name on it, because they realize that their name is political poison.
Right.
So they're trying to take more and more ways of like indirectly giving people money without actually saying that APAC is doing it.
Yeah, that is like people need to. I'm happy that people are like waking up to the Israel hobby. I'm glad that we have APAC tracker to be a really easy way for people to see this. But I need people to understand that Israel donates through PACs, through not just APAC.
Right.
And I said this last time, and this was like a big thing in the Illinois primary that I just passed. Kat Abu Ale, like she had money that was paid against her to other candidates through not APAC, because those people were like anti-APAC. They swore never to take APAC money, but there were these shell corporations that like frame themselves as like progressive. Even like one of them was like elect a Chicago women, and that it's like obviously there's a pinkwashing happening there, but like Israel has its tentacles again in a lot of these other packs, and so it doesn't matter if you say, oh, I'm never taking another dollar from APAC, right? If you're taking money from the Sunshine and Rainbows pack, right? But the Sunshine and Rainbows pack is also Israel aligned. Then
And not to mention that in a lot of these campaigns, they won't explicitly donate to people to be like,
Right.
okay, well, this person's pro-Israel or such and such. The reason why, what they'll actually do is that they'll have attack ads against people who are anti-Israel. For example, like in the case of Kat Abu Ghazaleh, they spent so much money, like the Zionists spent, hundreds of millions. I'm not sure, I don't know the exact number, but it was an exorbitant amount of money to make sure that Kat lost her race with all these like anti-Kat ads. Like, oh, she's super duper into Ukraine, and like, oh my God, like,
yeah.
what's that about? Oh my God,
Yeah.
and all these things, like she's not progressive enough, like, ooh. But it's not even about that. It's not about her
It's not.
particular like domestic policies. It's about Israel, and it's about the fact that she's Palestinian.
Yeah, that's the other thing that people kind of ignore there. So what do you we talked about how the average Dem is just appalled by Israel's actions. Like, do you think that
It's an
they're gonna
80-20
buy?
issue.
Right, yes. So do you think that they're buying a lot of this like anti-Israel quote unquote rhetoric from the Cory Bookers around like Valerie Fushi in Carolina who ran against Nita alum? Like, do you think that the average people are gonna buy this?
I think they're not. I think that a lot of people are, I mean, they aren't necessarily as tapped in as maybe we are, but they are very sensitive to the fact that, like, your politicians are bought by Israel indirectly or
Right.
directly. And they're doing this in the interest of a foreign nation. And like they're putting that nation first before your own interests as an American. I think as soon as you call a dog whistle on that, it's kind of cooked. It's like
I agree.
this person, it's kind of like the litmus test for whether or not you'll actually be a fighter in Congress or not, whether or not you support Israel. Because it's an 80-20 issue. If you support sanctions on Israel, abolishing the apartheid, giving Palestinians the exact same rights as Israelis, then you are showing that you have the political metal, the muscle to
Right.
actually advocate for our rights. And that directly translates to domestic policies as well.
Right. Exactly. Like this is when people are confused when Cory Booker goes on the I've Had It podcast and he gets pressed on Israel stuff and he says the same with Gavin Newsom when they say, "Oh, my voters don't care about Israel." Right? They say that my voters don't care. It's not a real issue. When I talk to my constituents, it's not in the first 100 issues they name, right? Obviously, that's a lie, right? But that's like not even my point here. Even if being anti-Israel was this like really niche issue in the party, it still should be on. Sorry,
like it's been for decades.
Right.
Very niche. Third rail.
It still should be on you to stand up for human rights because human rights are important. Because if I can't rely on you to stand up for human rights abroad, if I can't rely on you to simply not send a bunch of bombs to go be dropped on brown children, like what kind of character do you have?
Right. How can we trust you for anything?
Who are you? What substance? What good character? People want to vote for good people. They want to vote for people who they think are like nice and charming and friendly and who people think
and have their interests at heart.
And have their interests at heart. I even think that people value voting for a person who they think is a good person is above them voting for someone who meets their interests. Like
really?
People are I do. And like I think Trump is an example of that. And like they will more often vote against people who they don't like as a person. I think that's even more apparent. People hate Kamala as a person. People hate Hillary as a person. I hate Trump as a person, right? But like Trump does not align with any of my core interests. People would have actually benefited slightly by Kamala's policies, regardless of what you think parasocially about her as a person, right?
Prosecutor.
Right.
We
don't gotta get into all that. I shit on Kamala every episode too, but
there's like an innocent guy she put in prison and he doesn't need to be there, but like because of her he's still stuck in that cell.
That's my point though. We want to vote for people who we think are good people. And if you condone genocide, if you support it, if you vote in a way that facilitates it, you are not a good person. And people don't want to vote for you. And that is such a lesson I need people to learn.
I think that in terms of people voting, a lot of people don't. I mean, Trump, people thought that like he was the guy. They thought that like, he would seal up the border. They thought that like they were anti-migrant. They thought that like, oh, there's this huge crisis at the border that they got to fix. And they thought that Trump had the solution to all of their white nativist problems. And along with that, he also promised tax cuts, no taxes on tips. He had all these like policies that, on purpose, on paper, they look good to his constituency. They look good to his base. But in execution, they actually harm the average person. It's just that they aren't informed about that. And the Democrats ran a horrible campaign that didn't actually oppose his policies, but more so tried to meet them in the middle. Can't do that. It's either yes or no. You're either with us or against us. When Kamala Harris started being like, I'm pro fracking now, like, let's go fracking.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
because she had principles. It's because Trump was doing the same thing and he was getting motion with the people in Pennsylvania, the workers there, and she just followed suit. So we want someone who's a leader. We want someone who actively thinks critically and someone who actually stands for something. Like Trump, he stood for something and that thing is evil. It's horrible, but he stands for something. And Kamala Harris, she stood for nothing. She was an empty vessel.
But yeah, the as a PA of the voter, the fact that like you thought I would vote for you I will be more likely to vote for you because you're pro fracking is just insulting.
That's what
So
we get. That's
so
our
immediately
support.
insulting. Like,
Right.
oh
That's
my
our
God,
little slice of the pie there.
we live in hell here in PA. Like this is just we have fracking and John Fetterman. That is the only things happening over here.
John Fetterman, bro. That guy, he's an ogre. He is an actual ogre.
And like I'm a big mental health guy. It's like politics and mental health are like my two big things.
Right.
And so
I'm
if
trying to psychoanalyze how he had a stroke and turned Republican.
I'm not even trying to do that. I mean, I am, but like there was like a whole thing of him being hospitalized
Hospitalized. Yep.
because he was like sad and he had anxiety. I'm like, okay, cool. Take care of yourself.
Let's unpack it.
Go get that figured out. Listen, Congress people, they need a counselor too. That's fine. So I gave him grace. And that's my point there. Like in
mental health.
In the very early stages of the Fetterman saga we're in currently, like I gave him so much grace and now it's just over. It's so over.
It really is. And one thing about politicians is that we have to keep them in check. We have to make sure that they respond very keenly to our interests. It doesn't matter. Like, I guess I would say that, if they're doing something wrong, like for example, AOC, when she voted, or not voted, but like when she was in support of the resolution to send more like defense weapons to Israel, and then she ultimately voted against the bill, like that, we need to condition. Like they're like our pets. Like we need to condition them. We need to make sure that they respond to heal to our interests, because otherwise they'll go off and do some other bull crap that we don't like. But my point is that they aren't perfect. They'll never be perfect. And we have to make sure that they actually respond to what we want in their imperfection. What matters most is the movement. And, we have to make sure that we steer the ship on the right course, because otherwise it's going to go off track. It's going to veer to the left, veer to the right, actually, excuse me. And we're going to go off course. We're not going on the right track. So we need to make sure that this boat we're on actually reaches the destination of, universalized healthcare, more affordable housing, getting people off the streets and actually putting them in like subsidized, like, common homes, getting people a place to live, being moral, conscionable people, having a better society.
People. Yeah, building the world we want to live in.
I think it's important to say that, Iran, like the Ayatollah and the government there, like it's their domestic issues we can have problems with. Their policies on the domestic front, like maybe they're anti-women or like anti-trans. Actually, they're more pro-trans than the U.S. surprisingly in some cases. But regardless, actually Anyway, I'm getting all over the place right now. But the point is that it doesn't matter what their domestic issues are on that front. What matters is their foreign policy, what they're doing in the world. It's not a good thing for the people of Iran if we bomb their country and kill people and, kill a bunch of
Right.
school children. This isn't
Right.
going to help the Iranian people. What helps them is by lifting the sanctions and letting their government and their world actually build, letting their country develop more. And then the people can actually rise up and, have a more responsive government in that sense. We've seen time and time again that sanctions and, attacking a country through like regime change, pursuing all of this nonsense doesn't actually help the people. And often the result of that is even worse than the prior regime.
Right.
Like, for example, we backed Batista in Cuba. That was our guy. And then Fidel Castro came in and he was pro-worker. People were living on the farms. They were living on the countryside and they were destitute. The U.S. used Cuba as a sleeve to, just have like a little playpen. Like they had like all these strip clubs and theaters and all this nonsense, but only for Americans and the wealthy class. Fidel Castro actually listened to the people. And for whatever criticism you might have about the current, Castro government in Cuba, these sanctions in Cuba as well, like the current sanctions that are choking out Cuba, this blockade that we have on Cuba, along with the secondary sanctions, it's not hurting the government in the way that people think it does. It's hurting the people. It's starving them out. It's making it so they can't participate in modern society without their electronics, all these blackouts, without the fuel that they need to run their country or to actually run hospitals. So my point, it's more complex than that. It's critical. It's not, we're going after the bad guys. Sometimes we're the bad guys.
Sometimes we are the bad guys. Crazy. On the Cuba point, when following the flotilla that recently went there and broke the blockade, there was a lot of discourse around like these influencers staying at like 5-star hotels when like the average person, the average hospital doesn't have running electricity. Like the important part there is that because the hospitals famously are ran by the government, they are subject to the blockade. Like they don't have any
Right.
power. They are running
And so
on
are a lot
generators.
of the hotels. The U.S. The U.S. only allows American citizens to stay in like 3 or 4 hotels, and
Right.
those hotels are like listed as like 5-star
Right.
online. So you don't really have a choice in that front,
Right.
and that is a direct cause of the American treatment of Cuba and its long-standing grudge against this island for daring to have a revolution, for daring to challenge American supremacy.
Yeah. There is a special form of like lib slop that exists if you are angry at the Iranian regime for like oppressing women, right?
Right.
And you are like totally cool with the war that just bombed a girls' school. Like
Right, like that's
like
very feminine of you.
like not very girl boss pantsuits
No,
feminism to go bomb girls' schools. I don't know. Gonna wrap here. This was super cool. Jared, where should people go to learn more? Where like any books, any movies, any shows? Like how do you learn things and where should people go to learn more about the very important conversations?
I actually have a few books that I recommend to your audience. But yeah, mostly it's about reading, it's about listening to the right voices. For example, Professor Avi Shlaim, Elon Pape. Who else can I recommend? W.E.B. Du Bois, if you want to learn more about like Black consciousness and colonialism. Let's see. Vincent Bevins, If We Burn, which is kind of like about the color revolutions during like the 2010s that are kind of like, and how they were co-opted by like the CIA and all this, like the Arab Spring, for example, and like why they didn't why they didn't enact in like progressive changes like people thought they would in all these other countries around the world. But I also recommend like reading philosophy because I'm a philosophy major. It's like, I gotta do that. You know what I'm saying? Like you You got to have like a principled mindset and ideology that you adhere by while you're going through the world. Because otherwise, you're not going to know your head from your butt. You're not
Right.
going to know what's going on in the world unless you actually have a principled stance. That's the base for everything. It's like, are you having an empathy first politics? Like, is that how you approach politics? Is it by thinking about like how people are hurt by the things that we support? Or are you the type of person who's like, okay, well, I am a horrible person. I'm just a horrible, I have a black heart and I just want the people around me to suffer. I just want the people who I see as my enemies to hurt the same way that I do. And so you need to actually get to reading. You need to listen to the right voices. I recommend Hassan Piker, Hassan Abi. I do recommend that. That's a real good guy there. No matter what the politicians and the media might say, it's about, having a principled stance.
That is something that I appreciate about you a lot. Having a clear moral conscience, a set of principles, and living by them, and being able to call out people when they go against
Right.
that.
And it's
That
about being outspoken about that too. Because you can't just have these ideas and do nothing with them. You actually have to go out there. You need to organize, get in contact with local DSA, Men for Choice, things like that, that actively try to organize people and create a ground roots movement to advocate for your cause are what's going to help change the world.
a great point. Everyone go look at those books. Just like for me, where I get a lot of my where I
This
get
one's
a
about
lot of
immigration, undocumented. It's by Aviva Chomsky. I really recommend it. It
relation
talks
to
about
Noam
how
Chomsky at all.
I think she might be his daughter, but
That is a very critical point. You should.
Sins of the Father. And
Mm-hmm.
this book is actually very important. It talks about how immigration was commercialized and how it's only really like an issue now because there's like companies want to use it as a means of separating the labor class, like having a two-tiered labor system where you
Right.
have the
Right.
undocumented migrants
Right.
and like the regular workers, and corporations can just like get undocumented migrants deported and then have like and bring them back, bring in like a new wave of them so they don't have to pay them, or they can just like violate their rights. But that's I just want to recommend reading, guys. Reading is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry for the
Chomsky's
tangent.
That's fine. Chomsky is in a bit of hot water.
He's in the Epstein.
Right now. Is in the Epstein files. Ugh, hi, Chris. Chomsky's daughter, though, Stan her. But yeah, wanna wrap up here. You've been a great guest. To anyone watching or listening, keep watching. Keep watching, not just me, but keep watching what's happening in the world. Do I think that things are getting better right now? No. No, I do not. But that's not a reason to close your eyes and to just shut off. Things are not going to get better if you don't know how things are getting worse.
Exactly. And that's how the Republicans and conservatives oftentimes will get things passed, but also Democrats, because they assume that people have a lack of interest. And so they can do things like pass anti-trans bills within state legislatures all around the country, or like anti-abortion legislation in like southern states. They do so because they realize that people aren't tapped in, even though the majority of people are pro-abortion. The majority of people don't really care about trans people like that. They don't want to hurt them. They just think like, okay, these are people as well. Why are we focused on them so much?
Right.
Like, gotta move on.
Yikes. Yeah. Badron, if you want to see more, subscribe, I guess. Keep on watching what I'm making. I'll be having that Israel Isn't Sexy piece out pretty soon, so I'm really excited for that.
Looking forward to it.
But yeah.
But I do gotta shout out some things. I don't know if we're gonna segue into that, but
Go ahead.
I gotta shout out my mom. She's the GOAT. Shout out my dad. He's also cool. My brother, Justin, amazing. That's the guy right there. My frat brothers, some of them may not have the best takes, but it's important to talk to people and meet them where they're at so that you can actually bring them towards your cause. Because not talking to them or vilifying them, that's not going to help anyone. That's not actually going to grow your cause. It's about talking to people and meeting them where they're at that will actually change the future and make things better for us.
I agree. Super cool. Yeah. Okay. And with that, it's been real, guys. Until next time.